And welcome back into the Cowboys Report. We are live once again. This will be the only live show this week until the Friday preseason game. Schedule change there, so we're not going to be live on Thursday because all the videos will be outdated within 24 hours. We'll talk trades on today's show. Brian Robinson very clearly appears to be on the trade block with the Washington Commanders. Should the Cowboys have interest, you can let me know in the comments of today's live stream. Y for yes, N for no if you would trade for the Commanders running back. I think you make a pretty darn good argument. He would be your best back on the roster, especially with the uncertainty of how good actually is Jaden Blue coming off the injury, not having played yet in the preseason. We'll get some shout-outs here in the live chat as well. Would you trade for Brian Robinson? Y for yes, N for no. It's a valid point being made by Daniel that, maybe the Commanders wouldn't trade it in division. I do think it would be a late-round pick, though. We haven't seen running backs, unless they're superstars, go for very much in the trade market. I'm almost remember the Jordan Howard trade, the DeAndre Swift trade being, essentially day 3 value. I think that's all you'd have to give up for Brian Robinson. There'd been some buzz, we'll get into it, in Commanders land of, hey, maybe he's not going to make it on the team and he couldn't being cut, he'd fallen behind the depth chart, etc. So I think he is available and fairly cheaply. Y for yes, N for no. Ecuador Man says yes. Lewis says yes. Marshall says yes. Crux Menace says no. Marshall says for Tolbert. Blood Slinger says no. Cruces does say got bigger needs at DT and corner. I agree. I would like to just do everything. I shouldn't have to choose. Now, if I have to choose, yes, but, I don't want to have to choose on that front. Jason, CJ, Hoop Jargon, Ari, Baby Deloach, all typing in their yeses. CJ says yes. Keep the comments coming. Y for yes, N for no. The pinned poll on today's live stream is this. Pick your quarterback 2. Who would you rather have be the top guy for the Dallas Cowboys behind Dak Prescott? JM for Joe Milton, WG for Will Grier. It has been actually 2 of the better preseason games from Joe Milton in his career. That's the issue because he was really bad with the Patriots last year. JM for you're still going to ride with Joe Milton. WG for you're going with Will Grier. Let me know in the comment section of today's show. 61% voting in favor of Will Grier. Brian Schottenheimer said Joe Milton's going to start again because that's the one they want to learn more about, which I honestly feel like that might be a Jones boy mandate to keep playing Will Grier in the preseason. Or keep playing Joe Milton in the preseason, excuse me. Maybe we see a bit of Will Grier earlier in the 3rd or 4th quarter this time around, but going to be a lot of Joe Milton again. So hopefully it's better. JM or WG in the comments. 62% voting Will Grier. Among the Will Grier votes, Marshall, John Allen, CJ DeYoung, JC Richardson says neither, which fair. Options aren't good. WG's in there from CJ. Ecuador Man said TD, which I think is me, which again is attempted homicide because I would die. I would not survive a single hit from, Zach Harrison when the Falcons trot him out there. I think I'm going to end up dying there. So I think I would not have fun. JM for Joe Milton, WG for Will Grier. This is the Super Chat menu on today's show. Any Super Chat gets you a shout-out. A $5 Super Chat gets you a raffle entry. TBD, it's also 10 is 3 raffle entries, by the way, so I'll change that here. $5 gets you a raffle entry. TBD, or you can probably just read only it. TBD, what that will end up being here. But I have to kind of make a decision at some point on Wednesday of what that's going to be. So still to be determined on that front, but something along the lines of jersey or something signed. So $5 is 1 raffle entry. $10 gets you 3, by the way. $50 for a shot and $100 for a beer bong. That is the in-season price points on the guise of Tom. Don't drink as much from the bosses. So 5, 10, 50, and 100 on today's show. And we'll give you a shout-out no matter what on the Cowboys Report. All right, I want you guys to name a surprise cut candidate for me. We're going to mention just general cut candidates here later on in today's show. But name a player who you think could end up actually being cut that would be a surprise. Like, Bruce Harmon getting cut will not be a surprise to anybody. That's not, no one is going to be surprised when that happens or if he gets waived injured, even potentially today, whatever. Give me your surprise cut candidates. People saying Milton, he ain't going to get cut. Phil Maffa, I think right now he is on the outside looking in of the depth chart. Brock Hoffman would be surprising. I don't think he played that great the other night, but I've also seen him do it in a real game, so it's fine. Someone said cut Milton. They're definitely not going to cut him. They've invested too much by their standards. I think Miles Sanders, Deuce Vaughn, Peyton Turner, those are all good names. Those are all very good names. Flanoy, Ari says Keemon Hall. Zion Childress might be ahead of him. I think the sheer lack of depth in the cornerback room means there could be some chaos. I think that's not outlandish. I kind of just ignored corner in this one because they're so friggin' hurt right now. You have like two non-hurt guys. It's like Troy Pride is like the only one who's healthy, and the guy they just signed, who's obviously not gonna make the roster. It's kind of funny. Miles Sanders, Andrew Booth. I think if the season started today, I think Andrew Booth might start for you. It'd be one of Booth or Hall/Childress. TJ Bass. We haven't noticed him much in the preseason. It's actually probably a good thing there. Sam Williams, I think will stick around, but because he didn't play in the first preseason game, which I thought was indication they like where he's at. But good names in there. Troy Pride, he's for sure getting cut. Like, I don't say for sure, actually. Like, I think it'd be a surprise guy to make the roster. Not impossible. If you guys haven't already done so, do me a favor and like today's video. The more likes we get, the more videos we get to do. Always aiming for that 50% like ratio. Got a long way to go on today's show. So if you haven't already, like the video for me, please and thank you. Coming up live here on the Cowboys Report, we'll discuss some Cowboys rumors, a couple news tidbits we'll get to as well. A mailbag, 2 ways to get in on the show. Use #Cowboys or skip the line altogether via Super Chat. Let's go to the more adventure Super Chat that just came in. Then we'll get to the rest of it there. So stand by. We'll get to that one. We'll also run through some Cowboys cut candidates on today's live show as well. So a lot of trade conversations to have as I think we're getting close to trade season around the NFL. The Eagles have been active because, of course, they're active. They're always doing things and being engaged and being active. So we'll see what happens on that front. We have a $2 Super Chat from More Adventure says, I'll hope Tony Romo comes back with – it's actually different emoji in what he put versus what came through on the graphic side, which is really interesting. It's like the sad emoji essentially is what it was, with like a huffy puffy sad emoji. Look, that race obviously has been run, but the medical stuff was the real crux of the issue there in the end for Tony Romo. So get your super chats in. Remember to like the video, and we'll dive into the live show, getting going right now. Coming up on today's Cowboys Report, we've got a Cowboys roster move we'll break down once it happens. The Brian Robinson trade rumors are here and real around the NFL and should be real for the Cowboys too. Potential Kyle Duggar addition/trade. He seems to be on the outs in New England. And some have suggested cutting Mazi Smith. I'll break that down in today's show. Of note, this is the third on-demand video we have done today. We had the morning video, the breaking news signing video, then the live show. So this video should not be getting a push notification on YouTube. So help us out. Share today's video. Let your friends know a new Cowboys Report is out because there's some good stuff in today's show. Let's go to Brian Robinson. The Commanders are reportedly shopping him as a trade candidate. There's been some buzz out of Commanders land that he was actually a potential cut candidate, surprise cut candidate for the Commanders. But it does sound like there is a real possibility that the Commanders will move on from Robinson. In fact, he is not playing in tonight's preseason game by mutual decision, which means he gone. Jordan Schultz had this one Sunday night saying the Commanders have been shopping him to teams around the NFL. And then he also followed up with, they still like him, at the right price, which, okay, the cat's out of the bag there. Once you're shopping him around other teams, this race is over here. Others seem to have passed Robinson at this point. Obviously, Austin Eckler is a huge part of that run game. The Commanders seem to think they have found something with Corey Krosky-Merritt as I think it was a seventh rounder, a small school guy for the Commanders. Chris Rodriguez, Commanders depth chart. Chris Rodriguez had started to get some more playing time for the Commanders last year. They have Jeremy McNichols. They could maybe go find another third running back, or Felton and Allen, McNichols, whatever, could also contribute on special teams. Brian Robinson does seem to be available in Washington. And I fully buy that he is available. There had been, my guy, Jack Sperry, for our Commanders Report channel here at Chat Sports, had mentioned that is on a video. I am inclined to think that he is on his way out now. So once we get to this point where we kind of all know that, any trade is probably going to be pretty cheap. And we'll break down some of the pros and cons here on, I guess maybe more of the pros, on a potential Brian Robinson trade. But I think this is one the Cowboys should consider. I look at what this team has in the backfield and go, I don't think Robinson is an elite player anymore, but he can help you. I think that is something you should be considering. So, would you trade for Brian Robinson? We'll make this the pinned comment on today's video. Y for yes, N for no. Go vote at that pinned comment. Would you trade for Brian Robinson? Y for yes, N for no. Given the Cowboys' really lack of proven ability in the backfield, in that running back room, I would strongly consider a Brian Robinson trade. He seems to have fallen out of favor with the Commanders and that offense. I think he actually fits what Schottenheimer and company want to do decently in the Cowboys' run game. And most importantly, he has been better recently than this other group of second, third, fourth chance running backs the Cowboys have minus the draft picks. I think you can make a fantastic argument he'd be RB1 on this team, and he would be better than Javonte Williams and Sanders, and would be a good pairing with Jaden Blue short term. I don't think he'd be very expensive either. The trade cost is a day 3 pick at best, somewhere in that range. That's what history tells us for this caliber of player in the backfield. The contract cost is $3.41 million. That's not that much. That's a rounding error in the end for the Cowboys. So yeah, I would have interest in Brian Robinson. I think he helps you. The production is not elite, but it has gotten better from an efficiency standpoint each season. It didn't have as many yards in 2023, but he ended up having fewer carries. It was fine. He's probably never going to be a 250 carry workhorse back, but if I can get 180-ish carries out of Brian Robinson at 4.2 yards per carry, that's better than what Javonte Williams has done recently. That's better than what Miles Sanders has done recently. I think that's better than what Phil Maffa would give you right now. So yeah, I absolutely would have interest here if I were the Dallas Cowboys. We'll see if they do. Today's show is made possible by Prize Picks. Prize Picks is simple to play. You just pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections. And if you get your picks right, you could cash in and win up to 2,000 times your money. It is the best way to get action on sports in more than 40 states, including California, Texas, Florida, and Georgia. One thing to always keep an eye out for Prize Picks are some of their discounts. For example, Dak Prescott has a max discount right now at a half passing yard in week 1 of the regular season. Put that in all of your Prize Picks lineups. It's kind of silly to not put it in there. So you compare with how about Xavier Worthy getting a single jet sweep carry, more than 3.5 yards on the ground. And then maybe you want to be a little bit aggressive. How about Ashton Genty rushing or receiving touchdown in the preseason game coming up here? That's in week 1. My bad. Download the Prize Picks app today and use code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. It's Prize Picks. Run your game. We appreciate them sponsoring us here on the Cowboys Report. Let's move to a potential Kyle Dugger trade. There have been some media reports last week or so indicating that he is kind of on the roster bubble. He has fallen down the depth chart. He got work with the second team and then was kind of on the scout team a little bit. And he played all the way through the end of the fourth quarter in the second preseason game for the Patriots. He was way down there at that point. And he made the interception, but that was, not all that you really wanted to have. You wanted to have a little bit more on that front out of Kyle Duggar. The fact that he was playing deep into the game is a significant red flag for him. I talked to our Patriots guy, Brett Alper. He's like, yeah, he's been bad, essentially. The Duggar we saw in 2024 wasn't as good, wasn't as impactful as the guy we saw earlier in his career. There is an entirely new regime essentially in charge in New England. There is money issues we'll get to here in just a second, but this is certainly someone to monitor as not just a trade candidate, but maybe a cut candidate as well. This is the Kyle Duggar contract. He's owed $15.26 million against the cap this year, $10.75 million in cash owed. The Patriots would save next to nothing with a cut. They'd be able to push some of the money off into the future. It's only $1 million. Trade would save 10.76. So essentially the same as the cash owed. There's a little bit of difference there. Of note, $2.75 million of his 2026 salary is guaranteed for injury. So you'll be paying him a lot of money if you traded for him. That's probably your biggest issue here. Is he better than Donovan Wilson? Or is that kind of like half a dozen of one, six of the other, as it relates to your safety room the Dallas Cowboys have right now? How does Donovan Wilson fit in? You're probably comparing those two guys in terms of your depth chart. I hope that it's okay that Wilson ends up being fine, Hooker ends up being fine. I think that the money is the single biggest issue for a potential Kyle Duggar trade, interest, whatever. I question if the Cowboys would be willing to take on that amount of money. Now, if he's cut, different conversation. So would you consider a Kyle Duggar trade? T for trade, P for pass. Let me know in the comments section of today's show. Would you consider a Kyle Duggar trade? Get those votes in. T for yeah, you trade for him. P for no, you'd prefer to pass. Let me know in the comments of today's show. Let's go to Mazi Smith here. Sports Illustrated projected the Cowboys would cut Mazi Smith on their roster projection. Now, I know a lot of you guys are unhappy with Mazi and the impact he's had from the first-round pick, and that's fair. That is valid. I understand all of that as it relates to Mazi Smith. But there are massive issues with cutting him. There are significant issues. You can't really quite move on from that right now. There are problems. I get the frustration on the play. It hasn't been good enough. Mazi himself has admitted that. It's not where it needs to be on the field. I think at best right now, you're kind of getting rotational play out of Mazi Smith, which, okay, that's fine, but not for what you wanted for a first-round pick, right? He's too slow off the snap, and I still wonder if that's ever going to end up changing in the end. More on this to come, and we'll go in depth on why you kind of actually can't cut Mazi Smith right now. But what is your confidence level in the Cowboys defensive tackle room? 1 to 10 is your scale. 1 on the low end, 10 on the high end. Let me know in the comments of today's show. Let's talk the defensive tackle depth chart. The single biggest reason, or one of the two biggest, why you can't cut Mazi Smith is who the hell else are you going to play? You're going to ride with, I'm not out on Jay Toby long term, but he hasn't actually been better than Mazi Smith so far in the preseason. He has to do more than that. That's your only other big guy. Akinbasote's been a non-factor. Winfrey's been kind of disruptive at times. He's flashed, but he's maybe 300 pounds. I need my nose guard. I need 2 of them right now, and that includes Mazi. I can't get rid of him. He is still one of my 4 best defensive tackles. The bar's low, but he does clear that part. The other element is this. I actually don't save any money. In fact, it's actually a financial disincentive to cut Mazi Smith right now. You cut him, of the $3.62 million cap hit he's facing, you'd actually lose an additional $2.5 million. Now, if you could find a trade partner, sure, comes back to point one of, like, then who are my other defense tackles in there? Like, is Linval Joseph better? Maybe that's one spot, but, like, I don't think I can find two guys right now that are actually run stoppers and are healthy. Sorry, Christian Wilkins. So I'm not buying the Mazi Smith angle of him being cut. I would be pretty damn shocked. Now, for more Cowboys news, rumors, updates, everything else in between, hit that sub button so you don't miss out. YouTube.com/@CowboysTV. Let's talk mailbag here on the show. Get your questions in via #Cowboys. Skip the line altogether via Super Chat. That is #Cowboys, or skip the line via Super Chat. If you don't Super Chat, then, that's fine. But Super Chats get you on no matter what. You do need to use the #Cowboys, or else producer Aiden cannot find your questions. He will be unable to bring them up on screen. So any comments, thoughts, concerns, whatever you have, now is the time to get them in with that #Cowboys. Saw a couple decent ones come in earlier, but this is your opportunity. Whatever airing of the grievances, I know we're not in that time of the year for Festivus, but any airing of the grievances you have, now is the time to get them in. #Cowboys or Super Chat to get in on the show. I actually like Ecuador Man's comment a lot about Mazi that I think we can definitely find a way to get to. So get him in with that #Cowboys, or skip the line altogether via Super Chat. There are some super thanks we'll get to on the mailbag as well. AJ last name, we will also get in on the mailbag. Of note, I need to start getting this set up right now for the Week 3 preseason. Every $5 Super Chat will get you in to our TBD jersey raffle. I don't actually know yet what we're going to give away at this time, but $5, you're in to our jersey, something signed, something in that ballpark raffle. $10 gets you 3 raffle entries. $50 will bust out the shotties. We got a fresh batch made. And $100 is a beer bong with the boss has said I can't drink unless you guys make it happen, by the way. We do have, as predicted, the roster move. I'm going to tweet this out here real quick. To make room for Michael Ojumedia, excuse me. I always mispronounce it because there's the A at the end. The Cowboys have waived injured cornerback Bruce Harmon. So nothing overly surprising on that front, but that is the official news there. The Cowboys waiving/injured with an injury designation Bruce Harmon. He'll revert to IR, and then they'll eventually buy him out on that front. So I do want to go with the super thanks first, and then we get to other stuff, but I do want to go in that order there, by the way. So last call on the super chats. #Cowboys can get your questions in for the show as well. So as soon as I get the thumbs up from Aiden, we'll dive into it. All set, my friend? Yeah, sponsor. It's Ethos. I think that's a good call there. So get your questions in, #Cowboys, or by super chatting. We got a super thanks to begin today's mailbag from William Cook. Says, Jerry won his Super Bowl this week, with the Cowboys being the most valuable sports franchise in the world. Winning the actual Super Bowl is secondary. Isn't that the problem? Doesn't it feel like somehow, some way, there's always something going on that's just, at times, it feels like the Cowboys are a marketing team that happens to also be a Super Bowl contender. Like, I would rather see the Cowboys try like hell to win games. Take advantage of the fact that you are the most valuable sports franchise. And they don't do that. Like, they don't actively try to win at all costs the way other teams do. That keeps them healthier 7 years from now, but who cares if you're not actually maximizing your window? You can be bad when you need to be bad. That's okay. The Cowboys do a great job of building a 9 to 10 win team every year, but that shouldn't be the goal, actually. As a reminder, every $5 super thanks or super chat gets you into our in-season, in-game raffles. So if you can't watch during the live shows, you still got ways to get entered. Plus, we'll do free giveaways during the game itself. Get your entries in with a $5. Wife and I are driving our RV to every game this year, home and away. Let's go Cowboys. I hope you enjoy that, Jet Lag Warriors. That sounds fun. That sounds like a grand old time. Hopefully you enjoy it and everything else. I'm glad you're the financial ability to do that. I never will be probably, but hope you have fun. Hope the Cowboys actually win some games for you as well. How many Dallas Cowboys games have you been to? Let me know in the comment section of today's show. We'll make this the pinned comment, by the way. And I went to a bunch of them. I've been to one in Jerry World. And when I grew up in Cincinnati, every time the Cowboys came down against the Bengals, I'd go. Some good memories. A couple not good ones there, but mostly positive. So let me know at the pinned comment of today's show. How many Cowboys games have you been to? From Ecuador Man, what's worse, Mazi's get-off or his getting pushed off the ball, or the equally both terrible? I think the answer in a way here is it's kind of the same. Mazi's get-off not firing fast enough often leads to him getting pushed off the ball. That, when it's a pass rush play, the get-off isn't there consistently enough, so he's not getting the penetration you want. And when he's slow getting off the snap in the run game, that's how he gets pushed back so far. So I think you're right. Like we saw it in the preseason game. Like he's often the last guy to fire off the ball. And there were several times he's 6 yards downfield. You can't have that from your nose guard. That's the exact opposite of what you want. When you're a little slow off the ball and then you kind of stand up and the lineman's already into you, that's how you're getting pushed off the ball so much. So it's kind of the same issue in the end. From Zach, what player-for-player swap would you take for Brian Robinson? I kind of feel like the Cowboys, from a value perspective, might actually be getting a little bit less back just because of how the position is regarded in the NFL. I do think something involving a Jalen Tolbert for Brian Robinson swap actually does make a bit of sense for both sides. The Commanders get some more stability on the outside at wide receiver amid the Terry McLaurin contract. I think that gets done, so maybe the Commanders aren't as interested in that. I think if you wanted to go get Brian Robinson, though, I do think you could get a late day three pick or even a pick swap for him. I don't think the value is particularly high right now. From Token Cowboys fan, what week does our cornerback room get healthy if there is a real timeline? I don't know if there's a real timeline for everyone getting healthy. Like they might kind of stash Josh Butler for a good portion of the season. I don't think Savone Revel is going to be healthy to start the season. I think he's going to miss at least the first 4 games. Diggs, week 1 or first 4, we'll see. I think let's check in again around the bye is the over-under. I also don't know if you're going to get 100% Revel what he can be in year 1. He's probably going to still need some ramp-up time he's suffered a setback at camp. We can call it what it is. That's what happened. But I don't know when you get truly, truly healthy here. Now, today's show is made possible by Ethos. As a father of 1 kid and a second one on the way, trust me when I say life insurance matters. It's not fun to think about what would happen if something happened to you, but you do need to be prepared. Protect your family with life insurance from Ethos. Get your free quote at ethos.com/NFL Daily. That's ethos.com/NFL Daily. Ethos is a trustworthy company that disrupts the traditional life insurance industry, and it's more affordable than you might think. Ethos is an online platform that makes getting life insurance fast and easy to protect your family's future in minutes, not months. There is no complicated process, and it's 100% online. No medical exam is required. You just answer a few health questions and get a quote in as little as 10 minutes. 3 million families have completed their applications and trusted Ethos to help find the right coverage. Protect your family with life insurance from Ethos. Get your free quote at ethos.com/NFL Daily. That's ethos.com/NFL Daily. Link is in the comments section and the description of today's show. AJ last name, a $5 super chat. Thank you very much, AJ. Says, where are all the clowns who wanted to replace Dak with Joe Milton? this is not uncommon. It's not even just true for the Cowboys. Like, if there's a quarterback you don't love, it's always the next guy's going to be the guy who's going to be so good and take the job from us, whatever. It was Trey Lance, it was Cooper Rush, it was Ben DiNucci, which was always a fun meme, frankly. If you watch Joe Milton play at all really at Tennessee, or in the preseason, which, not many of us are Tennessee fans, I assume, and sure not many of you, if any, are Patriots fans, this is what we saw a lot of, the inconsistency. He has a howitzer. Where that ball is going to go is a question mark at times. He doesn't always see the field well. If you wanted to develop him, not going to argue with that. But he's not there yet. He might never get there. He might just end up being, Logan Thomas all over again. But the traits are intriguing. He's just not a finished product yet. From Patriot King TTV. Just got here, and you may have already gone over this. I'm sorry, but any new on the Micah contract? Why does Jerry Jones do this with every big deal? It's getting old. As of filming this on our live show Monday, there is literally nothing new. Adam Schefter continues to go on ESPN and say there's no new update, which somehow then gets put into there's an update on Micah. There isn't one. That's not really an update. There's no update because the Cowboys haven't called Micah such as his agent yet. Until they do that, Micah's camp has made it clear they're not going to try anymore. They will just let things play out. So we'll see when it changes. I wouldn't be shocked if it happens again in that Lamb-Dak Prescott timeline, in a week or so. But it's dumb the Cowboys keep doing this. They keep finding different reasons, excuses, ways to get here. It has to stop. They're only hurting their own team in the end. From Daniel M., why do the Jones boys going to go after no-name players at meaningful positions when we need good players? Do they want us to think that they're smart and we are stupid? Honest take. I assume this is in reference to the signing of Michael Ojumedia on Monday. Look, this is not trying to fill their cornerback need. Like, that's part of this. This is literally, we have to get someone in here who can play in the preseason. They don't have the bodies right now. Even if you sign Stephon Gilmore, he's not going to play in the preseason. Bruce Harmon's hurt, Robert Rochelle's hurt. All these different corners are super banged up right now. They have to get somebody else in there that can help them survive the remainder of camp and the preseason. Until they do that, the main cornerback need is still there, but this isn't designed to fill that main cornerback need. This is to fill something else altogether. This is to help you get through the remainder of the season. Or preseason. Now, I'll say this too. When the Cowboys continue to have issues and complain and say, oh, we like our guys, that's a valid thing to complain about too. But I think in the end, they kind of are two separate topics. They are two separate issues as it relates to the Dallas Cowboys and the issues. I think you're right that they have to get more good players in there, but just letting it ride with those players isn't a valid solution necessarily either. It's just kind of a weird, awkward spot that the Cowboys have managed to put themselves in at this point. It doesn't solidify anything. From No Name, I guess blacked out. I don't know. Maybe YouTube censored it. Who knows? Trade for Jameis Winston. I think if you wanted to go trade for somebody, this is probably the best option. I think he's a fun backup. He makes it entertaining for you. But I don't know what that solution actually ends up looking like in the end for the Cowboys. I think it's just it kind of has problems for Dallas that in the sense that I don't know if they're going to want to go down that path. I don't know if they're going to want to consider adding another player at the spot. They might just say, we believe, and leave it at that, even though I do think backup quarterback is a pretty valid concern for this team right now. So what is your confidence level in the Cowboys backup QBs? 1 to 10 is your scale, so let me know in the comments section of today's show. What is your confidence level in the Dallas Cowboys backup QBs? Again, it's not including Dak Prescott. He goes down, and we've got issues on our hands no matter what, but let me know in the comments section of today's show, what is your confidence level in the Cowboys backup QB room? Speaking of backup QBs, from Steven Goltz, I think that's how it is. If Cleveland releases Shedeur, you think Jerry will sign him if either QB does bad in the last game? I think that you might not get him off waivers. He might get snatched up before that. I don't think the Browns are going to cut Shedeur Sanders, so I think it kind of ends up being a moot point in the end. I'll also say this, by the way. I I've seen people say, well, you should have drafted him. Yeah, but you weren't spending a third-round pick on Shedeur Sanders. And he went off the board before your fifth-round pick. So that was also, I think, kind of a bit unfair. From Juan Ramos, should the Cowboys trade for Brian Robinson? Will that improve the running back spot? What will the cost be? We did do a video on this on Monday, Juan. Hopefully you checked it out. I wouldn't be shocked if they pursued that as an option. I would like them to. I think he's an upgrade. The Cowboys always like their guys around August. They just don't always like doing moves. I would like to see them do something like that. I think the cost would be probably a late day 3 pick in the end. We'll have more Dallas Cowboys YouTube videos right here for you on the channel. Hit that sub button so you don't miss out. YouTube.com/@CowboysTV. Free Cowboys videos each and every single day, multiple times per day here on the channel. Nate says trades for Shedeur Sanders. It's not happening. Draft a QB. Okay, well, that's a future issue. Pickett, Wilson. So Kenny Pickett sucks. I don't want that. I don't. Like, legitimately, I think I'd rather have Will Grier out there. It's not saying anything, but I don't think Kenny Pickett's any good. If that's Russell Wilson, he's not going to get traded by the Giants. So your options at quarterback, folks, they aren't good/realistic, frankly. From Carter, how about a Rachaad White trade? I don't know if he's available in Tampa. I get where you're going. Like, I think that they do like Sean Tucker a little bit. I'm unconvinced that he's truly available. That one might end up being he's available in free agency. I kind of feel like he's just in line to be RB2 for them in the end. But I do like trying to think through those types of options. So will the Cowboys make a trade? Y for yes, N for no. Any trade between now and week 1 of the season. Get those predictions in. Y for yes, N for no. Let me know if you think the Cowboys will end up making a trade. From Jariah Jones, Tom should do shots of Johnny Walker Blue. That's crazy expensive. I'm not doing that. Part of the bid is that we do disgusting things as shots and like not actually taste the items. I guess the Happy Dads are pretty good, but still, that's my mindset. Last one here from Daniel M. I hope you're right, though, on the moves we have to make because the Eagles are getting better. We're falling behind the 8 ball. Plashani needs to stop with the vanilla offense. They're not going to be anything but vanilla in the preseason. That's how every NFL team is. So I'm not worried about the fact that they've been vanilla. I'm worried about that they haven't been good when they've been vanilla. That's what concerns me. Like I don't expect them to run all their fun plays and all the crazy motions and fun stuff he's adding, but you're going to be vanilla. You got to execute, and I don't think they've executed. And both games, they've started bad. That concerns me a little bit because why aren't your preseason guys amped up and ready to go? They don't look ready, and that does concern me, even if it is just the preseason. Pick a quarterback 2 for me. JM for Joe Milton, WG for Will Grier. Get those in the comment section of today's show. Let me get Patriot King into the raffle entry. I almost forgot to do that when his super chat came in previously. Patriot King is in. 63% voting in favor of Will Grier over Joe Milton for the quarterback 2 battle. Sounds like it's going to still be Joe Milton, at least for the preseason. I don't know if that actually means he's the backup for a real game, though. I think the Cowboys know what they have in Will Grier. They don't know what they have in Joe Milton. I think the Jones boys want to see more of Joe Milton. This is the Super Chat menu on today's show. Any super will get you a shout out. $5, you're into our raffle entry for the preseason week 3 game, excuse me. $10 gets you 3 raffle entries. $50 for a shot, $100 for a beer bong. We'll get to any super chats that come in as we move towards the final segment of today's show. Coming up on today's Cowboys Report, we're looking at some cut candidates for the Cowboys before they get to the 3rd and final preseason game. Brian Schottenheimer saying there might be some guys who get cut that people had projected. I kind of feel like that was probably just coach speak more than anything else, but is certainly worth mentioning there. Now, if you want a Cowboys roster projection before the preseason finale, type me in the comments section of today's show if you want that Cowboys roster projection Flood the comment section. Type me right now. We'll go position by position. Not every big name, but I got 10-ish names here. And I want to begin with Miles Sanders and what his outlook looks like with the Dallas Cowboys. I don't think he's guaranteed a roster spot. I don't think he fared crazy well in that second preseason game. Now, he's got $1.2 million on the cap this year. That's it. All of that is guaranteed. So it is a fully guaranteed contract, but it's such a small contract that I don't really think it's an issue if you wanted to move on from Miles Sanders. Had one good run against the Ravens, was essentially completely shut out beyond that. A couple yards here, a couple lost yards here. He wasn't impactful in any way. And it does worry me for a guy who we haven't seen be impactful in 2 years. He had a good regular season finale performance for the Dallas Cowboys, for the Panthers, excuse me. But I don't think he's an elite level player. I don't think he should be guaranteed a roster spot. I would want to see him play a lot in the final preseason game and compete with some other guys we'll get to here. I think we'll see some Jaden Blue. That's good. But and Hunter Lipke's going to make this team. Javante's going to make this team. There's maybe one spot left in the backfield for some combo of Sanders, Maffa, Vaughn, and maybe Malik Davis, but probably highly unlikely there. And that brings us to our next two names. I think Phil Maffa and Deuce Vaughn are both prime cut candidates. I don't think you're keeping all three of those guys. You might only keep one of those guys. The contracts for both, shocker, are extremely easy to cut. Phil Maffa's got like $110,000 in dead money left. That's it. Deuce Vaughn is down to just, $66K, $67K. Neither guy is we got to keep him because of the contract guy the same way like Mazi Smith is, for example. No one has truly wowed me in the preseason. There's been some moments. I think Malik Davis has impressed me, but he's not going to make this team. If you include the taken away from penalty stuff, Phil Maffa's actually at like 14 for 57 yards, and Deuce Vaughn ends up being at 8 for about 30 yards. But Deuce Vaughn continues to operate ahead of Phil Maffa in games. Tells me he's ahead of him. Now, maybe the Cowboys will change their tune come the final preseason game, but I think there's room for not very many of these guys. One at most. So of these four, if you could only pick one, who would it be? And maybe none. None is a valid option, too, if you just want to go with Williams, Blue, and Lipke. MS for Miles Sanders, DV for Deuce Vaughn, MD for Malik Davis, and PM for Phil Maffa. Let's go to Jalen Brooks, and I do wonder if in the last week we've started to see some actual change on this front. So, Jalen Brooks has hung around the Cowboys for a while now as he's the receiver 6 and helps you on special teams. Again, the contract is a non-issue. He's owed 1.03 against the cap. You eat $41K in dead money, and that's not an issue at all. I think we mostly know what Jalen Brooks is at this point. He's never going to be an elite-level wide receiver. He's never going to be someone who really, truly wows and impresses you and is impactful. He's never going to be someone who's a great receiver. He'll make the occasional nice catch. He's got 18 catches over the course of his career in 21 games, the 1 touchdown. He is if you were to power rank like the receiver talent of all these guys, he might be last on your depth chart or at least near it. But he does help you on special teams. And that always matters for this type of stuff. There's a couple spots. I think there's one receiver spot left with Mingo TBD on the exact severity and timeline of his injury, but he's a bit nicked up right now. I think there's one receiver spot available. We'll discuss the two other guys I think have a shot to make it in just a second. But first, today's show is made possible by Prize Picks. It's simple to play. You pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections. If you get your picks right, you could cash in to 2,000 times your money. Preseason football is underway. College football is here. So don't miss any of the action this season on Prize Picks. Always keep an eye out for these special alerts from Prize Picks. For example, the max discount. Dak Prescott, week 1 of the NFL regular season. It's a half passing yard. That's all you have to do. It's a half passing yard in week 1 for Dak. That's a no-brainer. Put that in every single one of your Prize Picks slates. I'm going to pair it with Xavier Worthy, more than 3.5 yards on the ground. And Ashton Genty getting a touchdown for Vegas in that one. That's prizepicks.com/CLNS. Download the app today. Use that code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Link will be in the comment section and the description of today's show. That's prizepicks.com/CLNS and use code CLNS. The other two wide receivers I want to mention, Ryan Flanoy and Trayshawn Holden. I think there's room for one of those two at least, and maybe there's injury stuff that changes things here. But let's discuss them both. Flanoy, again, these are late-round picks. There's not much in terms of the contract, but he was a draft pick. That does matter for the Cowboys. They like their guys. They like the guys they drafted more. Holden has $3,000 in dead money. $3K. That is it. That's probably a paycheck or maybe 2 paychecks for some of you guys out there. Like that's not really moving the needle in terms of, well, we can't cut him. I have been more impressed in the preseason so far by Ryan Flanoy. He is maybe the leader in could have had yards if the quarterback's throw was actually better. Holden has been the last guy into the lineup at wide receiver. He is still buried on that depth chart, Holden is. Like, he is still far behind in that wide receiver room. So I think all three guys, maybe Flanoy is the higher draft pick and have the toughest time. I would wager you can get all those guys down to your practice squad. Of note, Ryan Flanoy got himself some more special teams playing time in that second preseason game. He was out there with the first team on the gunner side. Don't sleep on that stuff. That's how you make it as the 6th wide receiver. Let's say you can keep one of these players. Who is it? JB for Jalen Brooks, RF for Ryan Flanoy, TH for Trayshawn Holden. Go vote for me in the comment section of today's show. Which wide receiver would you rather keep if you could only keep one on the Dallas Cowboys roster? Let me know right now. Hakeem Adeniji, I'll throw him in there as the, insert offensive lineman here. I think because of injuries, we've kind of got a more consistent, projections along the offensive line. That right tackle spot kind of feels like the last one left. Adeniji has no guarantee money on his deal. And as a veteran, you could also sneak him down to the practice squad without having to go through waivers, which I think is something that we should consider when we're doing all of our roster projection stuff here. I thought he was much better in the second preseason game than he was in the first preseason game for the Dallas Cowboys. He had the sack allowed in the first and then fared better in the second game. I think Johnny Cornelius, though, on that offensive line has looked pretty good. That he's been pretty consistent and steady. And if it's Guyton, Smith, Beebe, Booker, Steele, Thomas, Bass, Hoffman, maybe Richards, and then Adeniji if you carry 10. Or is it Cornelius? Maybe it's Cornelius as the draft pick. They feel better about it. You can put Adeniji on the practice squad. That's the route I tend to lean. Let's go to the defense, and we'll go a bit faster here, by the way, since we're pretty far in. Jay Toia. I like him. I am not out on Toia by any stretch of the imagination, but I do want to point out that despite some praise from Schottenheimer, I don't think he's been consistent yet. He just might not be ready strength-wise as an NFL player. He might need a year or two of development. There's no dead money, really. $153K is nothing from that practical standpoint. If you like PFF, you're not going to like this. If you don't like PFF, you'll just chalk it up to, who cares? It's not valuable at all. He hasn't fared great. I thought Jay Toia was better in the second preseason game. I do think that 35 to 40 snaps is probably too much for him to handle right now, and he kind of gets worn down a little bit. But I don't know if he's a solution for you, defensive tackle. As of right now, though, he's probably your 4th or 5th best. I just think you need more there. The other 7th-round pick at defensive tackle, Tommy Akambasote. I don't think he needs to be on the team. Has anyone noticed him yet? Has anyone? He made 1 tackle. I think it was in the second preseason game. Much like Jay Toia, there's no contract stuff to be worried about here. $103K. That's it. That's cheap. Nothing you have to worry about from the dead money standpoint. Has only played 39 snaps, which I think is indicative of I kind of wonder if, like, guys with Akambase, like Holden, if they're trying to, like, just kind of hide them a little bit and get them down to the practice squad. As a late 7th-round pick, there wasn't a ton of interest. I think he is a prime practice squad candidate for the Dallas Cowboys this year. I just think you still need defensive tackle help. You know, your top 5 right now in some order are Osa, Mazi, Solomon Thomas, Toia, and Winfrey. Daxon, Brown, and Akambase are just a guy. They're Jags. Like, I don't know if that's really going to be a likely solution. I would go get somebody. So do you agree that the Cowboys need another defensive tackle on this roster? 1 for yes, 0 for no. Let me know in the comments section of today's show. Do the Cowboys need another defensive tackle? How about Peyton Turner? And this is not someone I thought was a likely cut candidate, but I think other players have impressed to the point that we should probably have that conversation. Now, the money's an issue here. You would eat $2 million if you were to cut Peyton Turner, $2.47 million in terms of his total cap hit. There's some also, essentially you're saving the per game incentives there. Turner got nicked up a little bit early in the preseason. It's fine for now, nothing overly concerning. He was a former first-round pick by the Saints out of Houston. He offers the size that the Cowboys don't really have outside of Marshawn Nealand as a potential edge setter. And for me, a lot of what this comes down to is, okay, what are you expecting out of Peyton Turner? And what do you need elsewhere in this defensive end room? Because Dante Fowler, Donovan Ezeraku, Sam Williams, those guys can rush the passer. Tyrus Wheat is an under-the-radar name to monitor. He always makes some nice stuff happen. James Houston has looked really good as a pass rusher. And if you just want the pass rusher / player, I kind of think James Houston's better. But if you want someone who can help you more against the run, maybe Peyton Turner still sneaks in. That, I think the edge who makes it how many is actually an under-the-radar area to watch this offseason. From linebacker, Kenneth Murray is next up here. And this is my one surprise, kind of out there, different idea suggestion. And this comes down to money for me. $7.41 million for Kenneth Murray. Only $1 million in dead. You would just be admitting you made a mistake with the trade. In the end, I would be surprised. I wouldn't rule it out, but I'm talking like 1 or 2 percentile outcome here. The Cowboys traded for him. They did not play Kenneth Murray in the second preseason game. I think that's because they think he's going to be a starter in the end. But what if it wasn't? What if it's because they're trying to keep him healthy and move on from him? I think that's, again, 1% chance of that. But I like what I've seen from this linebacking core so far. I think Jack Sanborn had himself a very good preseason game. Maurice Leofeld looked great in the first one. Damone Clark looked better in the second game. Shamar James looked good in the second game. Buddy Johnson, Justin Barron, Darius Harris, those guys can play special teams too. So this is the one shocking surprise cut candidate I'll throw on there. But it is doable from a money perspective. That's why I did want to mention it. Now, we will have Cowboys coverage of all the cuts as they happen right here on the channel. Hit that sub button so you don't miss out. YouTube.com/@CowboysTV. Finally, our old friend CJ Goodwin, who is just a special teamer. What the Cowboys could do here if they wanted to was cut Goodwin, get him to the practice squad, and make him a game day call-up if you had to. They like special team stuff. He's always a factor in that area. He's got $1.2 million on the cap, only $167K, rounded, in dead money. That's move-onable. And if it comes down to you're trying to get somebody to your roster that you're worried is going to get claimed, you can always make a decision 3 weeks later about CJ Goodwin. That's not the end of the world for you if you wanted to go down that path. So as a special teamer, sure, whatever. He's not that good of a player. It's special teams. I know that stuff matters, but he's not drastically moving the needle for me on the 53 if I need to keep somebody else instead. Pick your quarterback too. JM for Joe Milton, WG for Will Grier. Let me know who you'd rather have as the backup. Then we'll get to the Sam Bell super chat here in just a second. JM for Joe Milton, WG for Will Grier. 62% voting in favor of Will Grier. I would agree. I have my doubts that the Cowboys will end up agreeing on that front. So, good call, actually. Patriot King is our first one there, Aiden. Good call. The other Patriot King when it did the old reset on you. Okay, that's fine. We'll get to the Super Chats in just a second. Chris B coming in as well, so we'll get to all those. I see WG, JM, neither from Joe Linden. I don't disagree. I don't know if you're going to have another viable alternative that's like realistic from the other team's end or the Cowboys' end. I think that's kind of the concern there. All right, some Super Chats. Patriot King TTV. Any confidence that Jaden Blue might be the answer at running back when healthy? I think Jaden Blue can be part of your answer. I don't think he's ever going to be Christian McCaffrey. He's never going to be Derrick Henry. I don't think that that's like an actual, he is your lead back and you don't need anybody else. I think he can be half of your answer. He can be your answer of, well, he's the chocolate, but we do still need the peanut butter to make Reese's Cups. You still need both. Although, I just like peanut butter myself. But like to stick with the analogy, you still need something else there. You need that thunder to your lightning. Or a second lightning if you want to go that route. That's fine too. I don't know if that second guy exists. Hopefully we see Jaden Blue in the preseason and he shows out. From Sam, $8 Super Chat, Dan could have Mazi back for Robinson. Dan Quinn he's referring to there. I actually would prefer to trade the pick. Like unless you can go get me a DT2, I still need a defensive tackle. I think I need a DT right now. I trade Mazi, I need 2. I don't want to create a second gaping hole up front. But I get where you're going for there. Chris B, I think Micah gets his deal. I'm honestly 50-50. I also don't know if he'll play week 1 with no deal. He did sit out at Penn State. So tired of all this every year. I would be stunned if Mazi did not play a game. Because now you're passing on game checks. Like, the college stuff was different. And he didn't skip training camp. Like, that kind of opens up the nuclear option. It opens up contract tolling. Then we're right back to where it was. So I don't think that it's likely that he ends up getting moved or that he doesn't play week 1. I think he will play week 1. If the Cowboys want to, like, get off their butts and pick up the phone and call the agent, they can get this done. The agent's kind of in Micah's camp and crew, they're not gonna call the Cowboys anymore. That's why there's been no movement. Because the Cowboys are just fine not doing anything, which blows my mind in the end. We'll be live for every single Cowboys game this year. So if you haven't already, hit that sub button. We will be live for the third and final preseason game on Friday. Then we'll have roster cuts not too long after that. So hit that sub button if you haven't already. YouTube.com/Cowboys TV. We should absolutely go to that super chat. You were right to throw it up there. So if you haven't already, make sure you guys are subscribed. And a shout out to Jarrett for his $2 super chat as well. Appreciate that, my friends. We will have more coverage for you here on the channel all week long, all preseason remainder into the regular season roster cuts coming. If you haven't already, hit that sub button, youtube.com/@CowboysTV.